We are back once again on the Ultimate Sports Network, and we are talking with one of our newest contributors. Take it away.
Good morning, Frank. Thank you for having me. My name is Robert Watts, born and raised in North New Jersey.
All right.
Just got onto Ultimate Sports Network about a week ago. Did my first podcast just this past week. Working out the kinks. Very excited to be on board, and can't wait to talk sports with everyone in the future.
All right. Give us a little sports background. What makes you a passionate sports person?
Well, growing up in North Jersey, played a ton of sports: football, baseball, hockey, basketball. Grew up in a very competitive neighborhood. A bunch of boys there, very competitive. Played football all through school and even out of school. Still play basketball to this day. Just have really been passionate about sports and the competition for a long, long time.
Now, if you're like me, most of the people that I know and still know, I know from playing basketball with.
Yep.
Doesn't make it right or wrong, good or bad. It says, hey, we played ball last week, 6 years ago, 25 years ago. They're the ones that stay in my life. Is that true for you?
That's absolutely true. I have friends that I used to play football and basketball with from 40 year ago. We're a pretty tight-knit group. A lot of people that I know, they've kind of lost their connections from their childhood. Not for me. I still have a ton of friends, a good 10, 12 friends that I'm still super tight with, that I have relationships with for 10, 12 years, and we still kill each other about Steelers, Jets, Giants, whatever it may be.
Well, that sense of teamwork, camaraderie, competition, all that, I think carries us throughout the years.
Well, teamwork is definitely important. It's actually helped me quite a bit from my transition to my love of sports into my business world as well. You're not going to be successful in life unless you have a good team spirit and a good understanding of how it works. So that has been very important for just myself in general. And it's still true to this day.
Now, what brought you to the passion of now being a contributor, being a content provider?
Well, I just turned 60 in July. And I have decided, with everything going on in the world, COVID and stuff like that, been in a bunch of jobs that I really didn't like, and I had no life balance in them. And I was like, I'm going to do things that I enjoy doing and stuff that I know a lot about, and stuff that just makes me happy. And sports are definitely one of those things.
Now, you mentioned 60. When you were 20 or 14 or whatever, did 60 seem like this guy's going to not die next week? I mean, wow, 60, that's old, isn't it?
Yeah, when I turned 50, it didn't really bother me, to be honest with you, at all. Everyone said that would be the age. But when I turned 60, it's a wake-up call. Things change in your body and everything. It's just you recover slower from basketball games and everything. I'm big into physical fitness, and I'm lucky that I'm still very healthy and stuff like that. I go to the gym every day, so I'm still lucky. But I heal slower.
Yeah, and you pull stuff in bed. You wake up like, was I running yesterday? What happened? Yeah. But the flip side of that is you learn more about, I don't know if you get any wiser, you just learn more stuff. And you have more information. And you get a better perspective on your passions, on the things like you said. I've been working the jobs I didn't really like. Why am I doing that? Do I need to do that anymore? So let's do something fun.
Absolutely, yeah. When I was doing a job search, I've always been in operations and manager type roles and stuff like that. And it's like, I'm just going to search sports for a second, and Ultimate Sports Network has popped up. I was like, I'm all over that.
Well, give us a little breakdown on, let's say this weekend.
Well, this weekend, since I'm a Steeler fan, is a very, very important weekend, obviously. We need to get it together. The Steelers have 4 of their next 5 at home. We kind of get a little break with Seattle coming in next week on Thursday night, and Russell Wilson being a little banged up, going to be out of the game. And we really need to stack some wins here to get back into this race. I really like our coach, Mike Tomlin, and I would like to at least see him to get above 500 this year. I think that would be a great accomplishment. Got a great Sunday night game, Buffalo and Kansas City. I can't wait to watch that. That's going to be very, very interesting. The Patriots also going down to Texas need a big win there. So that's going to be interesting. There's a lot of interesting games. New Orleans going to Washington. Washington's defense is supposed to be, super stout. They have not been good at all. So they need, Fitzpatrick going out, definitely a blow, but their defense has not carried them whatsoever. So there's a lot of interesting games. Also, Green Bay and Cincinnati. That is a very intriguing game for me. You kind of think Green Bay is going to be a little kind of, catch-22 game for them. Cincinnati's playing well. So that's going to be interesting. And then, we got the Colts at Ravens on Monday night. And I tell you, the Ravens, my arch rival, they are a scary team. They're brutal on defense and they are brutal on offense. They just have run the ball right down your throat. There's some good matchups. I'm excited to watch them. The Jets have kicked off already, and Matty Ice and the boys are doing a number on those guys right now. So, it's going to be a good weekend.
What do you think of the concept of this England, London, Great Britain game? What do you think of that?
I'm not a big fan, to be honest with you. I understand they're trying to increase their brand, overseas and stuff like that, whether it's Mexico or London. In my opinion, I just don't see it ever coming to fruition, having a team over in London. The logistics is a nightmare, in my opinion. I don't see it working well. Mexico might be a little different, in Mexico City or something like that, but going over to London to play games, home games and stuff like that, the NFL is brutal enough, and adding another game for 17, it's just, when is it going to stop? That's
the question.
When is it going to stop? So I think, the players make the league, and as attrition starts to take hold, it's difficult, so not a big fan of London.
Well, it's funny because we have a young man from Mexico City that's doing kind of contributing for the NFL. And it was weird because I said, okay, I'm, American centric. And I know London is way over there. And I'm out in Las Vegas. I'm from Ohio. And I said, so, we're going to do a Zoom meeting. I said, so what time zone are you in? I should know that. I'm a man of the world. I should know that. You got to be in the Pacific time. You're in Mexico, right? No, we're Central. Central? Yeah, we're just south of Dallas. So then we got into it, like, okay, so a plane ride from Mexico City to Dallas is easier to get to, or at least connect, than a plane ride from Dallas to Boston.
Yep.
So the logistics of that wouldn't be too insane. But the logistics from Dallas to London, that's a whole day. That's a whole thing. So and he said, look, people love football in Mexico City. So the idea of expanding Mexico City, I don't think is too crazy just because of the logistics of it. But the London thing is like, wait, this is a gimmick, right?
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think Mexico City is definitely a viable option for a team. Maybe the Chargers one day. They could, they kind of need a home because they're playing home games with other people's fans there. Yeah,
it is kind of odd. Yeah, I thought that was weird.
Yeah, kind of, watching the game the other night against the Raiders, that kind of was, obviously the Raiders are from that area and stuff like that, so there's a lot of fans there. But it seems that's going to be the trend for the Chargers, and they're a very exciting team. I'm very high in them this year.
Well, it's funny because when the Raiders moved here, that's kind of what I thought it was going to be. It's like, well, it's going to be everybody else's fans coming here on vacation. I'm not sure of that right now. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out in those locations, a couple other spots. What's going to happen with this team or that team. And we have places that are in flux. Not too much, but, say a Carolina team, or a Jacksonville team, for example. What's going to happen there? Is this going to be well, we're just going to endure losing, or is this a fan base we're really going to hold on to?
Exactly. Yeah. And the Bolts, the Chargers, I lived in San Diego for several years, so I went to a lot of their games, and they were always fun. The weather's always beautiful there and stuff like that. But the fans were, kind of wishy-washy, and I understand from their history and stuff like that. But the Lightning Bolts are very intriguing this year.
Well, to me, being a Browns fan and knowing if the Browns can leave a fan base that adores them, anybody can leave. So
Absolutely.
I'm gonna tell you something, and this I might have to edit. I'm not sure, but when the Browns left, I became a closet Steelers fan for 3 years.
That is a big omission, Frank.
Well, I mean, like-minded cities, like-minded teams, like-minded ideals, and I'm not going to cheer for the Bengals.
No.
I'm not going to the Colts or the Lions, and I'm sure not going to cheer for the Ravens. So, yeah, I mean, it didn't last past that, but still,
Yeah, the proximity of Cleveland and Pittsburgh, there's so many similarities. Both teams grew up together. There's a lot of this similarity there. So I can understand that. I remember those days when I forget what van lines it was. Was it United? No, Mayflower.
Mayflower. No, that was Baltimore that went to Indianapolis. That was Mayflower.
Okay, yeah. That's right. Yeah. But I remember when they left, it was shocking for me being a Steeler fan. I just was like, really? So I'm glad they got a team back. They needed one.
Well, they kind of got a team back. That's another story for another day. But it's a big improvement. It's better than nothing, right? Now, you're in a hotbed of stuff without being in a hotbed of stuff. I mean, you're in an area where there's a lot going on, but it's not necessarily located for you. East Rutherford is not really supposed to be. I mean, they don't even say it's New Jersey.
Right.
So you got the New Jersey Devils, which is a New York team. What does that? How does that play? Do you go, well, we're all going to be New York fans, or we're going to be Philly fans, or is there a hodgepodge there?
Yeah, it definitely is. I grew up, being a Steeler fan, a Met fan, a Knick fan, and a Ranger fan. And, when the Giants, when the Meadowlands was first built, I was still young at that time. I had season tickets actually for the Jets when they opened up there, just because I love football. I wasn't in love with the Jets, but the first year that they played there, the Steelers were going there. I was like, back then it was like $150 for season tickets. I was like, I'm all over that. Right. So, the people that I grew up with, their fathers were either Jet fans or Giant fans. So they're still entrenched in their family's roots. It's kind of strange that they play in Jersey. I wish they had a little more acknowledgement of that, to be honest with you. But they never could come up with the concept of getting enough turf, basically, in the New York area to build the stadium. They were close there for a while, though. But it is a hodgepodge. But I'm not a big fan. It's kind of like the Giants' house, and the Jets just happen to wander in there, kind of like what's happening under the Chargers right now.
Right.
So I think there's definitely an identity crisis, and you kind of feel like the little sister or whatever.
Well, I think the rest of the world has acknowledged the fact that the AFL is part of the NFL because it's been 40 years or 50 years or 80 years or however long it's been. But I don't think in the cities where they're together, it's still, like you said, big brother, little brother, and I could go back and I could list the AFL teams, most of the teams in the AFC, and most people go, oh, yeah, that's right. But there is a divide in certain places.
No question about that. And I think the biggest example of that is the Knicks and the Nets. We'll just take last year out of the equation right now. The Knicks could be tanking, and the Nets could be playing good. All the phone calls are about the Knicks, all of them, and it's the same with the Jets and the Giants to a degree, but not as pronounced as the Knicks and the Nets. The Rangers and the Devils also are, that's a used to be a huge rivalry. It isn't so much anymore. It's kind of like the Rangers Islanders thing going on.
Right.
So yeah, this area is definitely divided just because we have so many teams in the same sport. It's like 2 and 2 and 2. So Mets and Yankees as well.
And you usually fall on the same fault line for each one. It's Jets, Mets, blah, blah, newer, older, that kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah. Normally in this area, you're kind of like a giant Yankee Islander fan.
Right.
Other people are more of a Jet, Met, Ranger fan. That's kind of how it works here.
Yeah. Interesting. Now, I'm going to throw a little monkey wrench in this because I did an interview with someone. It's been a few months now. He runs the USFL project.
Okay.
If, let's just go back, revisionist history. If the USFL had taken hold, because he had the New Jersey Generals were one of the best teams in the league. If that had taken hold. Tickets. Right. Now, folks, that's what I was going to ask. What was the following there? And would that have been like, now this is a New Jersey team?
Well, as I said, I had season tickets for the Generals. And to be honest with you, the football was great. They had a lot of stars, Walker, all those guys back then. And a lot of the teams who were star heavy, whether it was I forget, Steve Young played out in LA with the Express.
I think. Yeah. He's still getting paid for them, by the way.
Yeah, and Philadelphia had some really good teams also. I can't remember
Calvin Bryant.
Those teams. Yeah.
Calvin Bryant was one
exactly.
of the players.
But I think what really happened with the Generals is those games became such parties, and it was such a party, and the football was like secondary because It was always a nice day and everything. It was in the summer and the spring, and everyone, were in shorts and T-shirts, and it just became a party every day. So I think it definitely distracted from the football, even though the football was very good. I definitely enjoyed it, and there were a lot of stars. They weren't stars really back then. They became NFL stars, whether it was Herschel or Steve Young or any of those guys. It was fun. It was a fun league. Unfortunately, it didn't last, but it was still good.
And you mentioned something there that I think is very humorous because, and I'm here in the desert, and it's going to be, I think, 80-something degrees today. Maybe 85, 90, depends on when the sun really kicks in. Football weather is an important thing. It also brings up home field advantage and all that. Yep. If you're going to a Jets-Giants game or whomever, Rutgers or whatever in that area, is there a home field advantage or at least an advantage because it is in weather?
Well, I believe the answer to that would be yes. About 5, maybe 10 years ago. I think what's happening right now is that these teams throw the ball so much, and the weather, as the weather gets colder and more snowy and rainy, traditionally the power teams would start running the ball a lot. Okay, so you get a heavy dose of the run, and everyone's throwing the ball all over the place. It's beautiful weather to do so right now, but the run has become so secondary in the NFL right now. It's just it's kind of a joke. And my team, who is born and raised on the run, can't run the ball 3 yards.
Yeah, it's weird. It's weird to see, right?
Yeah, so I think the weather obviously plays a big role, and I'm very curious. Like, that's why I think the Ravens are going to be so dangerous as the year goes by, because I don't think anyone can stop their run. They're, just take Lamar out of the equation for the moment. They still run the ball and they've lost like 2 or 3 of their top backs.
Right.
They have such a good concept. They're so tough up front, and they just know how to run the ball. So I think, if they match up with, in Baltimore against Kansas City in the playoffs, I don't think it's
tough. Yeah, it's a tough matchup. Yeah. Okay,
yeah.
Now let's look at your Steelers real quick, and let's give Ben his due for what he's done and what he's been in the franchise, and let's not minimize that at all. But let's look. A couple years ago, was Mason Rudolph supposed to be the guy in the draft that was supposed to take over?
He was, and he's had his opportunities when, Ben blew his elbow out and stuff like that. And he's played pretty much like a backup. There's been no spark from him. And I think he's an adequate backup to, win a couple games here and there, especially when you have a defense like the Steelers, which, by the way, has not played very well so far. I think Mason Rudolph needs a good defense and a running game to be successful. He's not going to be the guy to throw the ball all over the place. I think his role will be as a backup. I don't think he can start for, an entire season. He's kind of reminds me of a little bit of Trent Dilfer, a little bit, a very big time game manager. And I think if you have a sturdy running game and a sturdy defense, he can be reasonably successful, but he's not going to win any games for you. He's not going to do a Lamar Jackson or anything like that. What I am intrigued about is Dwayne Haskins, who hasn't really had the opportunity. The guy threw 50 touchdowns in college. You don't do that mistakenly. The guy has a little talent. I think he's on a good team to help him develop. And I would like to see him get a shot. If we start falling out of it, there's no reason to put Mason Rudolph in the game. We all know what he brings to the table. And I think that, you can pick up a hidden gem with Haskins. Who knows? But I would like to see him get an opportunity at some point.
It's odd because Mason Rudolph in college, throwing to James Washington, by the way, threw the ball all over the place. I mean, with Mike Gundy at Oklahoma State, and you're like, well, if anything, this guy's going to come in and be a gunslinger. And he's been the exact opposite. He's controlled. I don't want to say scared, but I guess that's the best way of putting it, that he's not as confident in his abilities as he showed in college.
Absolutely.
And Haskins on the other end, again, you don't throw 50 touchdowns, especially at Ohio State. I mean, I realize that they've changed the mantra of how they play, that it's not 3 yards in a cloud of dust anymore. But still, just to be able to sling the ball over the place and go, well, who did he throw to? Well, and I go, oh, he threw to Terry McLaurin. These guys are in the league now. So you start to see that maybe it was this, and Billy Price and some of the linemen, well, maybe it was that. But still, he had a phenomenal year. And this is the guy that kept Joe Burrow on the bench or made him transfer. So if we're talking as great about Joe Burrow as we do, somebody saw fit to play this guy ahead of him. So, I think given the right circumstances and the right concepts around him, he can be successful, but he's got a lot to prove. Now, I'm going to ask you one. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I completely agree. And Rudolph did throw the ball all over the place in college, but, the NFL is a totally different monster. You got great defenders all over the place, and he's had his opportunities. And Gunslinger is definitely not a title I would give him. He is a manager. You know?
And he doesn't have James Washington running scot-free 30 yards down the field, crossing the field, right? Yeah, that's the whole different story.
It's not like the Steelers have a bunch of scrubs on the outside, Johnson and Juju and those guys, they can get down the field and make some plays for you. And he's just not made it easy for those guys.
Well, what I meant was in college, James Washington was usually open.
Oh, yeah.
And it's not happening that way. Okay, now I'm going to ask, I haven't done this before, so if it blows up, it's my fault. Since we are experienced in the way of sports, let's just put it that way, and we're looking at football in general, name 3 to 5 innovations in football in your lifetime that have changed the game to where it is now. Just random stuff.
First one is Air Coryell. I used to love, they had Wes Chandler, Johnny Jefferson. They were amazing. I was little back then. And
Charlie Joiner.
Kellen Winslow. I was like blown away by it. But like Wes Chandler and Jefferson, I remember them like it was yesterday. They were super acrobatic and athletic, and they made amazing plays. And we're not talking with like stick-em gloves that we have today. Okay? Okay? This was with your hands. That is definitely one of them. That was incredible. The Dallas Cowboys is a team that I do not like, okay? But I also remember, Landry and those guys, they were really good coaches. When they they understood how to make their defense with the personnel that they had. When they came up with the flex defense with Randy White and all those guys too tall, that was another big innovation. Obviously, speaking about defense, you got to go to the Bears, in '85 and Buddy. That was something else. From what I remember, he was the first guy who just came out and just attack. We got 10, 11 people on the line of scrimmage, and we're coming to get you. So you better get rid of the ball immediately. Granted, this is a little tidbit that no one really talks about. They played against, Eric Hipple and the Lions. It was their division was so poor. It was incredible. But I have to give them credit.
Was it Tommy Kramer with the Vikings, I think?
Yeah, I think Tommy Kramer was there. It was just not a great division at that time. And I got to give Bill Belichick his due, although he himself has been such an innovation, just becoming the chameleon of the NFL. His defenses are so tailored game to game. And he's not a coach who just takes a defense and this is the defense that we're playing and we don't care what you do. He just tailor makes everything. It's incredible what he does. And being a fan of football, I really respect that guy. I love what he does. I really enjoyed the Patriot Buck game a couple weeks ago. I thought that was really intriguing. So those are just a few of them that I can think of the top of my head. I'm sure if I sat here for a couple of minutes, I come up with some more.
That's why we do it that way, right? Well, okay. So Air Coryell. Now I'm the younger brother of not really a football aficionado, but a guy that was growing as a football player. So I remember him with the Cardinals, the St. Louis Cardinals, with Jim Hart and Roy Green, and even as a little kid, I remember Roy Green caught the back of the football on a go route. And the ball was coming down. He caught the tail end of the football and went, I want to do that.
Right.
I don't know if I'm ever going to be that fast, but I want to do that. Converted defensive back, that thing. So I thought that was cool. Dallas with the flex made me reset my electric football team because now I had to have one guy on the line, one guy off, because it was so obvious what they were doing. Now it didn't work in electric football, obviously, but you had to pay attention to doing it that way, which I thought was pretty cool. And then you look at the 85 Bears. Now, I was in Columbus, Ohio State at that point, and I had the good fortune a couple of years later to hang out playing basketball with Todd Bell. And Todd Bell would have been Dave Duerson on that team, but he sat out that year.
Gotcha.
And great guy, and he's passed away since then, but a great guy, but really open, really communicative, and a really personal guy. And we would have conversations, and you know how you do when you're playing basketball. You're not up, you've got next, you're sitting there just chewing the fat with people. And I felt like, I don't even really know the guy, but I felt like I could really talk to him about anything. But in the back of my head, something was telling me, but don't ask him about the year he sat out when the Bears won the Super Bowl. Because it just seemed like he had, everything was cool, but he never brought that up about anything else. He talked when I played with the Eagles, when I did this, he never talked about his years with the Bears. I went, that might be a sore subject. So I don't know if we want to go that far. But again, great guy. And Doug Plank, who the 46 was named after, he owned a McDonald's on the way to Columbus, which was the busiest McDonald's in the country at that point. And you go, it was right on the highway. And you would go in, you go, hey, there's a guy they named the 46 after. What's he doing over there behind the ice cream machine deal? But again, another open, personable guy, and he relished in that. I think he even had, it was like the 46 McDonald's or something like that. So yeah, but and there are all kinds of things like that. These are the stories that I love that we talk about. You mentioned Steelers. I had a chance to talk to Preston Pearson, and we'll get into that off the air. But it was just one of those, wow, really? Because that's, even though I was a Browns fan, when he was with the Cowboys, that was one of the guys that I wanted to be. And how he got to be Preston Pearson is not what I would have thought. And those are the stories when you start getting into these things and talking to people. You think you do your research and you know what you're talking about. I know sports. I know everything. And in like the first 5 seconds, you go, I know nothing about this guy. This is going to be great.
Yeah.
So, and that's what we're discovering with each other too. So I really appreciate you doing this. I really appreciate what you're doing. We will make sure that everyone on the Ultimate Sports Network knows what's happening. Do me a favor, throw out there all the information as far as connecting, finding you, all that stuff that people need to know.
Gotcha. Will do. Oh, okay. So yeah, you can reach me on Twitter. It's Watts, WATTS, USN1. Exactly. Facebook, Robert Watts, WATTS. LinkedIn, same thing. I'm available 24/7. And I'm excited to be with you guys. I can't wait to really get started. Have some good segments planned. I have some really good friends who are into a bunch of good stuff, wagering, fantasy. They're really good at what they do, and going to incorporate them in the weeks to come. Yeah, so I'm very, very excited.
Oh, and tell everybody your idea for your logo, because I thought it was really cool. I still haven't finished it yet, but I thought it was pretty cool.
Yeah, so obviously my last name is Watts. So we're having a logo with 2 helmets talking to each other, pretty much kind of like the USN logo itself. And the show is gonna be called What's Up? So it's pretty cool. I'm very excited about that.
Well, thank you once again. We'll make sure we get this out there and enjoy the day of football.
Absolutely. I got a quick story for you, Frank.
Sure. Go ahead.
When you bring up Jim Hart, so obviously, how old are you now, Frank?
55.
55. So you remember the days. We didn't get to see Jim Hart.
Exactly.
I would wait till I think it was, I forget, Sunday night or something to watch This Week in the NFL with Pat Summerall and those guys.
Right. Tom Brookshire, right?
Yeah, you catch a clip of John Hadel and Jim Hart and John Brockington, whoever it may be. And being such an impressionable kid, back then you're like, oh, that guy looks really cool. You'd be all over it. And it was like, oh, I need more of him, but you couldn't get any more of him.
Right.
There's no outlets. So,
That was when you would beg to stay up for Monday Night Football through halftime. And okay, Howard Cosell's done. You got to go to bed now. Yeah.
Yep. Exactly.
Now we got the halftime highlights.
Yeah, that's the only way you get to see teams from out west is like Monday Night Football.
Or if the Cardinals were playing the Giants, you could see that. That was about it, right? Yeah.
Yeah. So it was a very limited stream of knowledge going back and forth, but you got that little clip, a little highlight, and you were totally intrigued. It's good stuff.
Or the NFL today with Brent Messberger and Phyllis George and Irv Cross. Well, Irv Cross is out in the snow, of course. But yeah, you would get it then. And I was like, okay, I've got a little, and you just got a taste. And you go out and say, today I'm Jim Hart. And you go out and play, and your buddies are like, who the hell is Jim Hart?
Yeah, I remember I had a Jim Hart 17. My mom took me to Sears, and I had Sears back then, and you could get football jerseys back then. I had like Jim Hart, John Brockington. I had a whole bunch of them. They were just cool back then.
And I don't think people grasp that. And I know we're saying, hey, old farts, we're talking about old fart stuff. I get that, but I don't think they grasp how much you had to be a fan back then.
Oh yeah. It's easy to be a fan now.
Yeah.
All you have to do is look at your phone. You have 15 notifications of what the Steelers are doing. Who's active, who's not, who has a toothache. It doesn't matter. You had to be resourceful. You're looking at the papers and stuff back then. It was hard. Looking at box stores in the Star Ledger and stuff like that.
The only time you got the information from the game was from the box score. And I remember sitting at the table with my dad going, yeah, the Rams played great. It's like, what? The Rams? Yeah. How do you know? It says so on the box score. They scored blah, 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 blah. And, I'm going to forget the guy's name. McCutcheon. Lawrence McCutcheon had 147 yards. And you're like, okay, Nolan Cromwell had a pick. And how do you know that? It says right there. That was cool. Yeah. And you're right. If you're on the East Coast, West Coast didn't exist.
Exactly.
Unless you got that Jim Zorn, Steve Largent highlight, that was about it. Well, you always got the Raiders. I don't know why that worked. You always got the Raiders, but that was about it.
Yeah, the Raiders are prime time. Raiders, Cowboys. They're always going to be. If they're going to be on TV, it's going to be one of those teams.
Yeah, but it's and see, this is the stuff. And folks, just because you may be 24 years old doesn't mean these shows are not for you. Exactly. But it provides some perspective. You just can't go on the TV or on the computer and go, Fanatics, I'm going to get this jersey. Like, so you had to go to Sears. And if you have to Google what Sears was, I really feel sorry for you. But you had to go to Sears and get your information. But this is great. And this is what we're going to continue to bring, because I think the past influences the present. And us old heads, we have something not necessarily just to say, but we understand how important it is now because of how important it was before.
Yeah,
and I think we get that fandom. Yeah,
I think it's important to pass down stories. It intrigues youngsters to do a little research, and youngsters love researching things. And a lot of my friends' kids and stuff like that, they love going on YouTube and looking at stuff like Lawrence McCutcheon or Jim Hart or whatever it is. It's cool. So.
Well, thank you, sir. Enjoy your day. Enjoy your football. I hope things turn out well for you. I'm not sure what my Browns going to do, and I try not to care anymore, but it's hard. So
it's going to be a difficult game.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Frank. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it. You have a great day too.
Okay, no problem.